Introduction again. My name is Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening. I'll give a little more formal introduction about me and my background in just a moment, but let me do a little bit of housekeeping so we can just stay on track here. First off, people often ask, how long does this take? Well, typically an hour and 15 minutes in that range, sometimes a little longer, almost never a little shorter. There's lots of information you are going to collect tonight. This is a great time. If you need a drink, coffee, pop, water, whatever, great time to get that. I also recommend some paper, notebook, pencil, paper, pen, something like that to take notes. There are definitely some things. You're going to get some stuff that applies to you, I promise you. In the meantime, let me, what else? At the end of the workshop tonight, I'm going to do a Q&A, a question and answer period for you. So as we go through the workshop, you might have a question right now that you want answered. Type it into the chat section. Our tech team will queue those up. So when the workshop ends, we don't have to wait any time at all to start getting into the Q&A and answer those questions. I will endeavor to answer everyone that's asked this evening. So if you can just take time, if you don't have a question now and you come up with one in the middle of the workshop, don't hesitate, just type it in. We will certainly take your questions at the end of the workshop and you'll have time to type those in. But it helps us tremendously. It helps you if we can get those in and rolling first. Okay, let us get started. Again, I appreciate you being here. Let me open that up. I'm going to make this a little bigger for me. Hopefully it's good for you. All right, let's get on track. Again, my name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant, an RFC. That is a designation for retirement planning, for investment management. It's what I do. It's what my main job is. I'll talk a little about my background for a second. I also carry the NSSA. That's the National Social Security Advisor designation. It's the only college accredited designation for Social Security in the country. There are about 1,751 advisors that have that designation, which is way too small. I don't understand. Look, there are 1 million advisors in the country that call themselves retirement planners. And I don't know how you do that without understanding Social Security and taxes. It's incredibly important to be able to talk about that with some authority and plan for that. So I've had this for years and years and years. I've taught courses, hundreds and hundreds. It might be into the thousands at this point of these courses. I've done it at colleges. I've done it at universities. I've done it all over the country. And I've done it online for years as well. So this is an important thing. But let me get a little more into my background. I own a registered investment advisory firm. That's a firm that has clients where we charge a fee to do investment management, investment planning, retirement planning for them, tax planning, Social Security planning, all included. I want to put you at ease this evening. I've been incredibly successful at that. My son and I own that company. It's done incredibly well. That's what we're not going to talk about that. You can relax. We're not going to try to sell you investments tonight. Not going to give you stock tips. That's not what we're here for. We're going to talk about Social Security, but I need to disclose this. The company operates in about 43 states. We have about 1,153 client accounts. We've done incredibly well, and I'm grateful for that. But we're not going to talk about this evening. Okay, let me get on and let's just start into the actual workshop here. Okay, why are we here? Why is Social Security such a hot topic right now? Why are so many people involved in it and curious about it and asking questions about it? Well, every single day, my guess is there are a lot of baby boomers on this workshop. I'm a baby boomer. The chances that you're here says you are too, or you're right on the cusp of it. But every day, 10,000 of those baby boomers are turning 65 every single day. 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month. Last year, 3.64 million of us turned 65. And that's going to happen for about the next 11 years. It's a crazy amount of people. Every one of those is not everyone, but almost every one of those is going to find their way into applying for Social Security because they paid into it. So, maybe more importantly, 65% of retired middle income Americans derive more than half of their retirement income from Social Security alone. It represents a huge portion of the income we're going to have for the rest of our lives. And since 1985, American corporations have eliminated 84,000 pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people lost their pension. I mean 84,000 corporations. Some of those individual corporations had hundreds of thousands of employees. One day they said, "Hey, we've got pensions. Our employees we're committed to providing pensions for them." And then all of a sudden they said, "No, we're not going to do this anymore. It's just too darn expensive." And you became the responsible party for your retirement, or at least a third of it. And then 46.1% of Americans, listen to that, almost half of Americans currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral. They're the other way of saying that is they're broke. Can you imagine that? That's scary. Now, look, a lot of people say, well, there are a lot of poor people in the world. I'm not talking about poor people. I am. Obviously, they fall into this number. But poverty level in our country is about 14.1%. Almost half represents a whole lot more people who started retirement with 401ks and IRAs, sometimes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they ended up right in the same spot that somebody started off with. And you've got to ask yourself, how in the world does that happen? I'll endeavor to try and explain part of the reason tonight, because it's something you got to pay attention to. If you don't know about it, how are you going to avoid it? Okay. So, look, do you insure your home? Of course you do. Your car, you probably don't even have a choice. How about your health? Look, even if you don't have health insurance, when you hit 65, if you've paid into Social Security, you've also paid into Medicare, you're going to get Medicare. So, of course you do. How about your retirement? Now, some of you are going, oh, is he trying to sell insurance? No, you've already bought it. You didn't have a choice. It's called Social Security. Social Security is the largest single retirement insurance program in the history of the world. And you are vested in it. It's a big deal. And it may be way better than you realize. All right. So what's the risk of outliving your income? That's really what this is about. So look, when we retire, there are two fears. Do I have enough? And am I going to run out? Do I have enough for my daily and monthly and annual expenses? And is that enough? Am I going to have enough 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 30 years from now? I know some of you are going, oh no, I don't want to do that. But listen, this is census data. You need to pay attention to this. If you're a single male, age 65, you have a 50% chance, on average, 50% chance, coin flip, you're living to 85. That probably doesn't surprise anybody. But you got a 25% chance you're living to 92. If you're a single female, you got a 50% chance you're living to 88 and a 25% chance that you're living to 94. And then this is the one that I think shocks people. If you're a couple, if you're committed to people, if you love someone, you care about them, you care about their health, you demonstrate that by being involved in making sure they take their medicine and go to the doctor and get checked up. My wife forced me a couple months ago to go to the dermatologist. My sister died of skin cancer, and she freaks out when she sees a mole or something pop up or change color or something that looks odd to her. She gets me in there no matter what. It turns out it was absolutely nothing. It's called a mole. They come up with some long line because they got to charge you $80. But here's the thing. It was nothing. But she insists. And that kind of commitment changes your odds of how long you're going to live. If you're a couple age 65, if you're the male, you got a 50% chance you're living to 92. If you're the female, listen to this, ladies, you got a 50% chance of living to 97. This is census data. This isn't made up. This is what's happening right now in our country. This is Tomiko Utuka. Now, look, I apologize. She passed away less than a week ago, but she was the oldest living person in the world, almost 117 years old. Before her was Sister Andre, or I'm sorry, Connie Tanaka, who was 119 years old, whose claim to fame is she drank a beer, a Japanese beer every week, and she thought that tremendously helped her. Reports come out today that said, or that last week said, alcohol is not that good for you, even in small amounts. It takes time off your life. But look, there's a new lady that is 116 as well. I don't have her name. I'll have it. We'll get this updated. But I want you to know people are living a long time. By the way, there are two Americans that are almost 115 that are on this list of the oldest people in the world. There are lots of Americans over 100. In fact, if you looked at this list 15 years ago, I think there were a couple Americans in the top 100. Now it's chock full of us. Our parents are living longer and longer. Some of you know this. Some of you are dealing with this. Some of you are caring for them. They're living longer and longer. And it's a reality. It's going to happen to us too. And look, if you're planning your retirement, you have to factor this in. And that's why Social Security is such an important cog in that decision-making process. You got to have it down. You have to know what's going on, and you have to make sure that these things are paid for, are planned for. All right, here's what we're going to focus on today. Benefit basics, how Social Security works, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're single, you're going, hey, wait a minute. I don't see me on here. You're on here. First off, Social Security was created for you. The whole thing is about you. These are the offshoots. But you see that word underneath there called taxes? Man, do you have to pay attention here. It doesn't matter. If you're married, there's a really good chance you're eventually going to be single. But look, doesn't matter. Taxes affect every one of you. But single people, boy, have you got to stick it up and really pay attention here. Planning becomes super important. And then coordination of benefits and how important that is. That's what we're going to cover tonight. All right. So how does Social Security work? What are the basics? You have to work, obviously, at a Social Security coverage job, a place where you paid in and your employer matched that. If you were self-employed, you already know the truth. The hard truth is that you didn't get any discounts for that. You paid both the employer side and your individual side. No discount at all. And then they use the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefits. Really important that we drill down on this a little. Notice it doesn't say the first 35 years. It doesn't say the last or the middle. It's the individual highest individual years that you ever worked. I mean, I started at 14 years old. Interesting. I know in the trivia we talked about Woolworths. It was my first job at Woolworths at the lunch counter washing dishes. It was a horrible job. I hated it. It made me want to stay in school. but look, it's really important that you understand these 35 years are incredibly important to how you get Social Security. Now, they're going to use those highest 35 years, but what if you don't have 35 years? And maybe it's no fault of your own. I'll explain that in a second. But what if you've got 30 years? No problem. You're going to get a benefit because you get a benefit with only 10 years of work, 40 individual quarters. Individual quarters meaning any quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so forth, any quarter where you earned at least $1,810 in $2025. Last year, that was $1,720. So it's changed every year. It's gone up. Back in, I don't know, say 2000 or 1982, that was about $212. So in a quarter, only about $850 in a year got you your 4 quarters. So once you've got that, you've got it. But how do they determine how much you get? They use the highest 35 years. If you only have 30, what do? They take the highest 30, but they add those 30 up and then they divide by 35 to get your average income, which determines your your actual benefit. This is important because those benefits, some people say, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking it early." Um, uh, is there any penalty for that? No, other than if you take it before your full retirement age. I'll explain that in a few minutes. But this is interesting because if you take it without or before you have those 35 years, you're going to get a lower average income. They just add zeros to it and then divide. And that is going to lower it tremendously. Sometimes working an extra year or two can fill in those 35 years and make a huge difference in the actual amount that you receive. And we can work that out for you. We can show you how that works, but it's important that you know that. By the way, we're going to talk about the changes that are associated with this in just a minute that affects certain class of people. We'll get into it not very far away. Are there any exclusions and reductions? Does this get lowered for any other reason that might lower my benefit? Well, here we go. This, if you're a government worker, if you worked in the military, if you are a railroad employer, we're a railroad employee with a pension, if you worked at some state and local governments or school districts that opted out of paying into Social Security, there is a thing called a GPO, a government pension offset, and a WPO, a windfall elimination provision that actually lowered or could lower your actual benefit in Social Security. Now, here's the thing. On January, I think it was the 3rd, I think it was the 5th, I'm sorry, the Social Security Fairness Act of 225 was passed. It has eliminated all of these changes. Now, these changes affected you if you were, let's say you were a government worker, you worked at the government for 30 years, you retired with a great pension, but then you went to work in the regular workforce and you started paying into Social Security. And you didn't work 30 years, you worked 10. But that's enough to get you a Social Security benefit. But because you didn't have those 30 years in, they took that they left your pension loan, but the government said, hey, we're going to dock you on your actual Social Security, lowering the average Social Security check of a person like that by almost $600, about $579 a month. Worse, and the much worse part is, let's say your spouse only put in 15 years of work, but they inherited your benefit from your pension, your government pension, and then you pass away and they get your benefit. They had their Social Security. You might have thought she's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. They're going to have both of these. And then they completely took away their Social Security. That is going to be restored. And if you're one of the people that this fits into, be aware, not only are you going to get that going forward, but they're going to pay you back for 2024. January of 2024 through January of 2025 are going to be paid to you in the next month or two. And then they'll ongoingly pay you for the rest of your lives. This is interesting. By the way, I said some state and local governments opted out. I said school district. This affects teachers a lot. Teachers who school districts opted out of paying into the Social Security system in favor of paying into their own pension, but then worked somewhere else after that and got a Social Security check too. They're the ones that have been paying the price for this. It's really unfair because they paid into the Social Security system And yet the Social Security system was docking it and saying, no, that been fixed. Okay. How does Social Security work? You pay in 6.2% of your income up to, actually, this is, I think this is right. This just changed. 176,100. I think it was 168.2 up through December 31st of last year. So they will do that. Now, some people say, why don't they just do it for the whole thing? It's slated, I think, by 2050, that number should be close to $1 million. Why don't they do that sooner? I don't know. It's a conundrum. By the way, your employer matches that 6.2, so 12.4% goes in of every check that you've ever received from the time you were 13 or 14 to the last day that you worked. 12.4%, almost 1/8 of your paycheck, went into the Social Security system. It's a massive amount of money. Business Insider magazine did an article a couple of years ago, said an average couple are making about $50,000 each year between them over the course of their lifetime. By age 65, have paid in between Medicare and Social Security about $742,000 in today's dollars. Some of you are saying, can I just have that back? And I understand that sentiment. By the way, today's contributions cover today's benefits. Social Security was set up as a pay-as-you-go system. Let me explain that. When we started putting in money in 1935 to collect, and the first payout happened in 1940, that came from the people that were already retired, never put a dime in, but got paid. Why was it set up that way? Because Social Security brought us out, completely, absolutely brought us out of the Great Depression. There were unbelievable amounts of seniors who were desperate. Either the markets or whatever had companies that had promised them pensions went out of business. They were broke. They were desperate. It was terrible. People who had lived longer than expectation wound up having to get out of their sick beds to go work simply so they could eat. Social Security solved that problem, but it solved it by having the next generation pay into the system that immediately paid them. And then the next generation paid for them. And then the next generation paid for them. And this worked really well. Our great-grandparents only were about this many people, and then our grandparents were this many, and then our parents were this many, but we were this many. Do you sort of see the problem here? This is why Social Security, everybody is worried. 77 million baby boomers have wreaked havoc with the system. Does anybody know how many millennials there are? There's actually more of them than there are us, but not that much more. Only about 81 million. Now, 81 million is a ton. Don't misunderstand me. But sometimes, at some points in baby boomers paying into Social Security, it was a 5-to-1 ratio for our parents. It's nowhere near that now. So that's why they set up the trust fund. But it's created some problems, and it's created a lot of concerns about solvency of where Social Security is going. 2010 was the first year that we were actually in the red since 1983. 83 is a really important year in Social Security history. It's the year you got the letter. I don't know if you remember the letter. I'll remind you what the letter was, but you got a letter in 1983. Did you remember that? I remember it like it was yesterday because I remember what happened the next day. The letter said, hey, since its inception in 1935, full retirement age for Social Security has always been considered to be at age 65. But guess what? If you're born after 1943, up to 1954, it's now 66. If you're born after 1954, we're going to add 2 months for every year until we reach age 1960. If you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. That letter came in 1983. And I remember it because the next day at work, I don't know, I was probably at the coffee urn. I haven't said urn in a while. Do we even say urn anymore? I don't. I don't. In any case, I wasn't at Starbucks. That's for sure. Um, I was at the coffee urn having coffee, and somebody else said something, and I mentioned the letter, and we're talking about it, and I heard somebody 10 feet away go, "What are you worried about that for? It's not even going to be around when you retire." Do you remember that? Well, I remember cringing and thinking, what if that's the case? I'm putting all this money in, and what if I never get anything out? Boy, were they wrong. Dead wrong. It is absolutely around, and it's stronger than people realize. So Social Security is currently funded through 2035. Two years ago, by the way, that was 2033. It's gotten better. But maybe more important, and the thing that people don't realize is that roughly 83 cents on the dollar is funded thereafter completely. There's enough to pay 83 cents of every dollar that Social Security owes you is completely there. So I know people sometimes say 75. 5 years ago, it was 75. It's better. It's improved. But what do they do about the 17 cents? Nobody wants to take a cut. By the way, I don't think you have to worry about the cut. I'll explain that in a minute. But there are four basic principles to fix this. Now, I'm going to go into these in a second, but I just said something. I should really explain it. I said you don't have to worry about the cut. Let me explain why. In 1983, they changed a couple things. One thing is that letter that I just explained that changed what your actual retirement age is. Then they changed something else, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But there's a couple congressmen that got really peeved about this, and they got worried. Look, is this just a picture of what's going to happen again and again and again? Are we just going to start chipping away at this thing so it's nothing? And they put some provisions in the law that changed the things that happened in 1983. You might remember Trent Lott. You might remember Tom Daschle. They did these things to protect baby boomers because that 1983 law was absolutely targeted at you, 100% you. And I'll explain that as we get through. But here's the thing. They added in a codicil in that law that said, hey, it is unfair for people to prep for retirement, plan on retirement, put money into a system, and then the government yank the rug out from under them when they're close to retirement. It will wreak havoc in people's lives. So the system that we're in for you cannot be changed. They can't change the amount that they pay you. They can't change the way it's supposed to grow, the way that cost of living is figured. They can't do anything like that after you reach a certain age. That age is 55. So if you're in this workshop, I'm guessing almost everybody here is 55. If you're in this thing and you're watching it and you're over 55, they can't change that. Now, there are proposals to fix this that include raising the retirement age, extending it out, making the minimum retirement age longer than 62 at 64 or 65, or changing the maximum retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. Some are even saying 75. They're also talking about increasing the payroll tax, which they absolutely can do. But changing the benefits that you get, reducing them, is off the table if you're after older than 55. Can they change your children's? Absolutely. I have children that not one of them is 55 yet, although they're getting closer than that than I want to admit. I have a daughter that's 47. It blows me away. I think of me at 47 and I think of her, and I think of her as a kid, and she isn't a kid. I certainly wasn't a kid at 47. But look, they can't change me. They can change her. They can change her kids. They can change her grandkids, but they can't change me or you if you're over 55. That should give you some comfort. They've got to figure out a way to do this. You might say, well, Dave, what if they don't have enough money? And I laugh at that question because we don't have enough money to pay anything, but they find it when they want to. We just sent $2 more billion to Ukraine. How do they do that with a budget deficit? They do it because we're an economy that lives on fiat funds. We can create them any way we want, and we do it all the time. But look, hopefully, we're at a point in time. Maybe they solve some of those problems. I don't know if they do or don't. Am I hopeful? Yeah, maybe. But they will, if they have to run up the deficit to pay us, they have to run up the deficit. That's not our problem because we put the money in. That money is in. We didn't hold back. They collected it. We didn't have a choice. So you've got some comfort there. They can't take away your benefit. They can't change it. They can't reduce it. All right. So how is it determined? Look, you get your full benefit now, depending on when you were born and what year you were born, at either 66 or 67. If it's 66, you can apply early. And instead of getting 100% of your benefit, at 62, you could apply and get 75% of your benefit. Or you could delay and get what's called DRCs, delayed retirement credits, 8% annually. It's actually not annual, it's monthly, but it's what is it? 2/3 of 1% every month, at which equals 8% in a year. So every month you would get more if you delay all the way. And by the way, these are not compounded, but they are stacking 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. If you delayed all the way to 70, you get 132%. The difference between delaying to 70 and taking it 62 is 177% more benefit. Now, here's the dilemma. So many people have been scared to death about Social Security and its solvency, which is one of the reasons I talk about this, that 39% of us take it at 62 at the earliest possible date. And the most common reason isn't that I need the money, isn't that I can't wait, isn't any of those things. It's that I'm afraid I'm not going to get my money back. If you are being, I don't want to say brainwashed, but you're being convinced that there's danger in you getting cut off and you're taking it early because of that, you might be making an horrific mistake. Because 177% more benefit, it doesn't take long to make more. It's a huge deal, and it's one of those things you really need to think about first. All right, 3 distinct Social Security benefits. A retired workers benefit, that's your benefit. You earn it and you receive it. A spousal benefit. Now, I've been married 48 years. My spouse worked for a long time, but she didn't work for 35 years. But if she receives a spousal benefit, that spousal benefit is based on my record, not hers. Now, it's a little complicated because the way spousal benefits are paid is she'd still receive her benefit, but she'd get a spousal boost from my benefit. And that would equal the amount that was basically half of my benefit at full retirement age. Don't let me confuse you there because it's not going to show up that way. It's just going to be one check. But that's how it works. And then a widow, widower, or survivor benefit. This is a survivor benefit, isn't based on if something happens to me, she receives my benefit, not hers. And it's based on my work record and my earnings computation and my benefit record, not hers. The only thing of her that would affect that is if she took it early before full retirement age. And then it still would be mine. It would just be less because she took it early. Okay. Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 changed Social Security for married couples and divorced individuals. It created 3 sets of rules based on your birth date. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit of this because it doesn't apply anymore, but the rule has impact on you, and I want to make sure I talk about it so that you understand. Back in 2015, when I was helping people with Social Security, if you came in, I might have told you to go in at 62 and file. Now, if you just paid attention to me, that doesn't sound at all like what I would say today. And it's not. But the reason is at 62, you could have gone in, filed, and then immediately suspended your benefit. Now, what did that mean to you? Nothing. Your benefit is untouched. It's as if you didn't file. It just keeps growing. And then you take it at whatever date you want for the amount that you get as if it never happened. Why would you do it? Because it would allow your spouse to come in and file a what's called restricted application for only a spousal benefit. That allows you or them to collect on your benefit even though you're not collecting your benefit. It allows them to postpone taking their own benefit to full retirement age or even to age 70 and get a much higher benefit on their own than they would have gotten by taking it early. And it gets them half of your benefit. Well, it's less than half because you're taking it early, but it's a nice boost. We did this all the time. Congress caught wind of that, and they decided to change the rules so that you can't do this anymore. So here's the important thing. This affects people differently based on when they were born. I'm not going to talk about the first group or the second group, because if you're born prior to May 1st, 1950, you're almost 75 years old. And if you're not taking Social Security, you're making a huge mistake already. If you're born between May 1st, 1950 and January 2nd, 54, you're already past 70 years old. My goodness, you just turned 71. Happy birthday, but you should be taking Social Security already. But if you're born after January 2nd, 1954, oops, there it is. Helps if I actually turn the page. Anytime after January 64, this does affect you still. The suspension of your benefit, if you walked in, filed, and then suspended your benefit, it's as if you didn't file at all, and your spouse cannot file on your behalf until you start collecting. It's totally changed how this works. It doesn't allow you to do it anymore. That's not why I'm talking about this, because it's not worth talking about. But they added a caveat called deemed filing. Deemed filing, well, let me just explain it. Deemed filing means if you go into file now, hey, I want what's available to me. They take, instead of you being able to say, I had like this benefit, I like the spousal benefit, I like this benefit, you don't have any of that control anymore. When you talk to the clerk or you apply, you have one choice: the highest benefit available to you on the day that you file. Period. You can't do it any other way. That's not that bad, right? It's the highest benefit, right? But here's the caveat. Once you do it, deemed filing says you're done. You don't get a second bite at the apple. You don't get to change that benefit. You can't go back and do something different. All the things that we used to be able to do, you can no longer do, which makes the date that you file incredibly important to think through and make sure you're doing it correctly. Because once it's done, all your options are gone. For this group, people born after January 2nd, 1954, timing strategies matter a lot. All right, considerations for married couples. If you are interested in a spousal benefit, you must be married for at least 1 year. You can marry tomorrow. That spouse is not eligible until 366 days. Then they can actually file. But to receive benefits, I just said this, the primary worker must have filed and be receiving benefits. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own. This is the deemed filing part, that is equal to or greater than 1/2 of the primary worker's PIA. If your own benefit is larger, used to be this didn't matter, but if your own benefit is larger than your spouse's or larger than half of your spouse's full retirement age benefit or PIA, primary insurance amount, which is basically half of the primary benefit, full retirement benefit. If your benefit is larger, you don't get a spousal. You only can collect yours, no choice. But if it's less, you can collect up to 50% of your spouse's PIA, primary insurance benefit, basically the full retirement amount benefit. Here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement is $2,000. We're using simple numbers here. Jane would be eligible for one half of that at her full retirement age. She would get $1,000. Pretty simple, right? There's a little more complexity to it. Let me just explain. Again, full retirement age 66, you get full retirement age. You get your full retirement benefit. If you take your benefit early at 62, you get 75% of that. If you take the spousal benefit early, you get even less, 70% of that. Let's use that example with John and Jane. Jane at full retirement, when he's getting 2,000, she gets 1,000. But if she took it at 62, she doesn't get 1,000. She gets 700, not 750. Also, you see these built up DRCs, delayed retirement credits, 8%, 8%, 8%, 8%. Wonderful, 132% at 70. But if you're thinking that applies to spousal benefits, boy, are you wrong. This is one of the biggest mistakes that we see. People think they hold off filing for a spousal benefit, thinking they're getting those spousal boosts, that they're the DRCs, delayed retirement credit boost, 8% growing. That's a really nice deal, right? But it doesn't apply to spousal benefits. If you apply at 70 for a spousal benefit, you're going to get the exact amount plus cost of living increases that you would have gotten at 66 or at 67, depending on when you were born. You've just thrown tons of money away. And worse, I can go in and file and sometimes date back 6 months or even a year, depending on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. If you're filing for a spousal benefit, you can only go forward. You cannot go backwards. So those things are just lost on you. You've just given it away to the government. All right, survivor benefits. These are widow and widower benefits. At the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, obviously, or the benefit of the deceased. So if I die, my spouse can keep collecting her benefit. She wouldn't do that because my benefit is much larger. She can take mine. Here's the problem. If I filed at 62 thinking, hey, I want to get the most out of my benefit, I want to grab this as much as I can, but I'm not thinking about the spousal part of this, I've cut my benefit down to 75%. And when she gets the benefit, guess what? That's the one she gets. A lot of people, one of the most common reasons people, other than thinking, hey, I want to get something before it's gone, is I want to get something before I die. So imagine that you file at 62, you die at 65. Now your spouse has got this reduced benefit and she loses or he loses her benefit or his benefit. You can't collect a spousal benefit and your benefit at the same time, and a spousal or a widow survivor benefit at the same time. It's one or the other, whichever is the larger. Well, here's the only, I don't know if it's really good news. The government a few years ago, because so many people are filing at 62, 39% of us taking our benefit at 62, upped it from 75% to 82.5%. Not much. I mean, 7.5% is not going to save many people, but at least it's something, right? Okay. Most common mistakes. High wager files early, shortchanges those survivor benefits for the rest of the spouse's life. And then both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims the spousal benefit, just throwing away money without any idea what they're doing there. Huge problems. All right, divorced individuals. To receive divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for 10 full years. Wait for it, in a row, and to the same person. So no stopsies and starts. No 5 years married, 2 years off, 5 years married. That's not a 10-year marriage. 10-year marriage is 10 single years in a row with no breaks. The only exception to that that I've ever seen, is I once saw somebody who was married in February or divorced in February and remarried again before the end of the year. So they didn't have a full annual year. They didn't have a tax return that wasn't filed jointly. That's the only exception I've ever seen. There's no written law about that, but I've seen it happen at least once. All right, then to receive this, you can't currently be married. If you're divorced and you remarry, you now are entitled to, after a year, spousal benefits. You have lost divorce spouse benefits. They're not available to you anymore. Now, interestingly, if you divorce and then you remarry and then you divorce again or your spouse passes away, those previous spousal benefits are available to you. Now, same benefits and reductions apply for early claiming as you do for regular spousal benefits. There is only one single solitary difference between a divorce spouse benefit and a regular spousal benefit. There's no other difference. They're identical in every way. The only difference is this independently entitled divorce rule. It says, look, if my wife, 48 years have been married, if my wife wants to go get a spousal benefit on me, she can't, because I haven't filed for Social Security. But if she had divorced me 2 years ago, that rule's no longer applying. Once she's divorced for 2 years, whether I filed or not, she can go get my benefit, the spousal benefit, based on my uh, my uh, uh, my Social Security benefit. That's the only difference, and it favors the divorced spouse. Okay, Bipartisan Budget Act for 2015 affected all of these groups identically the same way it did. No difference between spousal benefit and divorce spouse benefit. So all of the things I said for the spousal benefit apply to that same act in the same way, with one exception. If you are older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as 62, switch to a larger divorce spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. And here's the caveat. This can be done more than once if you have more than one qualifying ex-spouse. So, look, I don't know how many people have ex 10-year marriages. I've seen a few. My goodness, my mother was one. But I've seen people with two a lot. Occasionally you see three. I have never seen a four, but I'm sure it's out there. But this, and because of this, the divorced spouse here gets some incredible benefits. They can actually choose which one they go after first and who comes last, so as they can arrange it financially to get the most benefit on the largest one in the end. Okay, common questions for those that get divorced. Do divorce benefits affect their current spouse or other dependents? The answer is no. You could have three ex-spouses all receiving benefits. Everyone's going to get the same thing, and you and your spouse, current spouse, and children are going to get the same thing. It's unaffected. And then this is the most common question I get asked: is my ex-spouse going to get notified by Social Security if I'm claiming under their record? The answer is no. Social Security operates just like HIPAA rules do with your doctor. They're prohibited from sharing your financial information with anybody, with one caveat exception. If you're a divorced spouse, you have the right to go to Social Security if you can prove with a marriage license and a final divorce decree that show the 10-year marriage. They are bound to give you the information about your ex-spouse so that you can determine whether or not you can file. That's it. That's the only exception. Okay. Widows and widowers. Okay. To qualify for a survivor benefit, you must be at least 60 years old, 60 years old. It is the earliest that you can claim retirement benefits of any Social Security benefit. Interestingly enough, if you're a widow or a widower and you remarry after the death of your spouse, let's say you married for a day before you're 60 years old, these benefits disappear forever. You can never get them back. It's important to explain, if you remarry after your 60th birthday, even a day after, which happens a fair amount, um, these benefits are available to you, whether you're married or not. You must remain unmarried until you're at least 60 years old. To qualify for these benefits, you must have been married for at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. The couple of exceptions, there are about three: servicemen or women of the armed forces of the United States killed in line of duty, firemen or policemen killed in line of duty, full-time firemen or policemen, not a volunteer, interestingly enough. Um, that's it. That's it. Those are the only exceptions. Okay. Let me look at the time. Good deal. All right. I'm going to do a couple of things. A lot of people say this is, they really like when I do case studies. So I'm going to do a quick one here on a widow. Look, whether you're a widow or not, this is important to pay attention to because this is really about how you file. This is a widow case study. It shows John and Jane again. John never elected and dies at 64. Benefit has his full retirement age benefit, which you wouldn't have gotten to 66 or 67, is $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger. She's 59 when John passes away. She remains unmarried, so she doesn't have to worry about that till after she's 60. Jane's estimated benefit on her own. This isn't his benefit. This isn't the widow benefit or survivor benefit. This is her benefit, which she doesn't get. She can't even apply for this until she's 62. It would have been $1,197. All right, I'm going to show you three quick options. I called the first one file without thinking. It's what most of us do. We walk into Social Security, we go online, and we basically take what they give us. We don't really think it through. We don't have a plan. We haven't really researched what the options are. And so we're stuck. We sort of get what they take us, and sometimes that's a huge mistake. Let me show you why. Okay, here are the options. First one, she files her benefit at age 60, and she takes that the amount, which isn't $2,150 anymore, because at 60 it's worth $1,537, and it'll stay there. Now we're going to use simple math here because it's so complicated to add cost of living and other adjustments. We're just going to do simple math, and we're going to say she's living 300 months to 85. 1,537 times 25 years or 300 months is $461,100. Now, some of you are going, that's not a very big bet, and that's a lot of money. And it is. It's a single benefit. You can imagine a couple with some more money in here is going to get a lot more than that. And then add in cost of living adjustments and things. It's a lot of money. This is no small thing for most people. Strategy one, look, don't take that benefit. Wait until you're 62, and then don't take the survivor benefit. Let it grow until the full amount of that at age 60, 66, or 67. Take your own benefit, the $1,197. Maybe you're working. Keep working for 2 years. Maybe you're making $40,000, $50,000, or $50,000 a year is an extra $100,000. Take that Then at 62, take the 1197, and then switch at age 67 and take the 2104, because that 1537 has matured to the most amount it's going to be, which is $2,104. That difference gets you from 461,000 to 538,000, almost an $80,000 difference, almost 20% more money than you would have gotten just by taking the benefit at 60. Now, a lot of people say number two is way better, Dave. Take the widow benefit. Or, I'm sorry, take the survivor benefit, or the survivor benefit at age 60 of 1,537. But that 1197, that's your benefit, right? This is what people don't realize. That benefit doesn't disappear. If I'm taking my spouse's benefit, that benefit is still there and it's still growing all the way to full retirement age. If I don't take it, then it's growing all the way to 70. That benefit, $1,197 by age 70, is $2,108. That's more than 1197. It's a lot more still than 1537. That's when you switch, because it stopped growing. All you're getting now is cost of living. If you do that, take the one benefit, the survivor benefit, 1537 until you're 70, then take your own benefit, 2108, until you pass away. That's 563,000. That's more than $100,000. 24% more benefit over your lifetime for just paying attention, just having a plan. This is why this planning is so important. Look, I know a lot of people. I've talked to thousands of people retiring. I honestly, I don't know any of them that can walk away from $100,000 without at least hurting a little. You just have to pay attention to this stuff. All right. Can I work and still collect Social Security? Very common question. Here's the answer: yes and no. Let me explain what it means. If you decide to take your Social Security at 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you, even 66, and you continue to work, if you earn more than $23,400 in a year, little less than $2,000 a month, for every $2 that you earn over that 23,400, $1 of your Social Security is going to be clawed back. Let me put this in simple layman's terms. If you make about $2,000 a month in Social Security and you make $58,000 at the end of the year, every dime of that 2,000 you're going to owe back to Social Security. It's worse because there is no collection police, there's no employment police at Social Security. They're not checking to see if you're still working. You know how they find out? When you file your taxes. The IRS sends them a note. Hey, notice this person's got Social Security income, but they also got regular income. Boom. And then you get the letter. And the letter says, hey, we'd like all our money back with interest. And don't worry, if you can't pay it, we have a great collection system. We just stop paying you Social Security until it's recovered. Well, wait a minute, you can't do that. I'm not working anymore. I stopped. Doesn't matter. It's foolproof. Well, unless you die. All right. In the year that you turn full retirement age, if you earn more than $62,160, for every $3 over that, they're going to claw back $1 of your Social Security. So, look, what does that mean? If you retire in June and you make 80-some thousand dollars, that's $18,000 more than that. That's about $6,000 of Social Security that's going to disappear from you if you collected it between June and December 31st. Look, it's very simple. The only way to avoid this is don't earn more than those limits. That's one. Two, don't collect Social Security before January 1st of the year after you turn full retirement age. In the year after you turn retirement age, you can earn as much as you want. You can earn $1 billion, no reduction of your Social Security benefit at all. You will not have to worry about taxes or a reduction of your Social Security benefit. You will have to worry about taxes. Now, I hope you all earn $1 billion, but my guess is you're not going to earn that much. Um, but look, you do have to worry about taxes. And this is, you remember I said earlier they changed a couple of things in 1983. One is the amount, how uh, your full retirement age benefits, and you send you the letter. What they didn't do is send you the letter about the tax law that they changed, because this happened in the same bill in the same way. This is a baby boomer tax. This was designed in 1983 to mitigate the baby boomer what they called the baby boomer problem. The baby boomer problem was, oh, we got a lot of baby boomers. How are we going to pay for this? And baby boomers aren't having babies at the same rate that their parents had babies. How are we going to pay for this? So they created a way to tax Social Security. Now, some of you going, hey, I knew Social Security was taxed. That's no big deal. That's only fair, right? Well, here's the deal. You've already paid tax on Social Security. Now, if you didn't know that, I'm sorry to inform you, but when you paid into Social Security in your FICO account, you paid with after tax dollars. You already paid tax on this. Why are you paying tax again? Well, here's the thing. They thought this was the only way to fix the problem. So here's the deal. They set up a system to collect taxes, and they created it in a way that affects baby boomers much bigger than they realized. So look, if you haven't figured this out already, there is look, if you want this publication, you can download it, 33 pages. It's publication 915. It will tell you how to figure out taxes on Social Security every year when you're doing your taxes. You can go to irs.gov/forms, download this right now. It is not simple. They do give you a nice worksheet to try and come up with the number, but it's complicated. Here's the thing. This chart was created in 1983. I call it the baby boomer tax, but there's a name for this. It's called provisional tax. So the provisional tax, the provisional income tax, was created in 1983 to determine how much tax you're going to pay on your Social Security income. And this chart was created in 1983. Here's the thing about this. Well, in 1983 is 42 years ago. I'm still getting used to 2025, sorry. 42 years ago, they charted this. How many times do you think this has been changed or adjusted for inflation? You might be surprised to hear none. It was never intended to be. You see, if your grandparents had $34,000 or $44,000 of income, provisional income in 1983, they were in the highest 3% of income earners in retirement in our country. This wasn't created for them. They never wanted to collect taxes on them. They created it for you, and then they left it without adjusting it ever to make sure that it caught up. Even 15 years ago, this might have been hard to get to. Now it's not so hard. Let me explain what provisional income is so that you understand what we're talking about here. This is probably the most common question I get, but let me just chart it out. I think it probably isn't going to excite you. So be prepared for some bad news. Okay, any W-2 income, that's probably no surprise to anybody, right? Your gross income, your W-2 income all counts. Pension income, all your wages, all interest income, all tax exempt interest is counted in this number. All 1099 income. If you got a job, you drive Uber in retirement, It counts. Even though you're 1099, it counts as provisional income. You've got a sales job, you collect 1099, you do it part-time, all counts as provisional income. All real estate income. A lot of you are thinking, hey, I got this down, Dave. I got a system. I invest in real estate. I collect rents. I get all sorts of deductions. Yeah, yeah. But your gross real estate rents are all going to count as provisional income. Business income, partnership income, LLC income, subchapter S incomes. At the end, let's say you've got an LLC or a subchapter S, and at the end of the year, you've got this partnership and it did well, but they give you this thing called a K1. The K1 is your share of that income. Now, mind you, I've had years where this has happened where obviously I own my own business with my son. At the end of the year, we get a K1 for whatever the profits of the company. Sometimes those profits don't get distributed to us. I still get the K1, but we need to hold the money in the company to expand, to build, to hire employees, to do something. All of that money will get deducted next year, but this year I get to count it in my provisional income, even though I didn't get it. Maybe you're like my son-in-law and daughter who force themselves to save money by overpaying taxes. So at the end of the year, when they file taxes in March or April, they get a big tax refund. Well, that tax refund counts as provisional income when they get it. Okay, let me get to the worst ones here. These are the ones that are going to affect you the most. Let's say you have an IRA or a 401k or a 403b or a 457 or a SEP or a SERP or SLRP, any tax deferred account that you put money into to save for retirement. When you take that money out, it counts as provisional income. Now, some of you are going, what? Think about this. Maybe I hear this all the time. I sit down with clients and they say, well, but my advisor told me to put as much money as I could in my 401k or my IRA. And put it in there because when I take it out, I'll be in a smaller tax bracket. Well, first off, that's not really the way it works anymore. A. And B, who knew that it was also going to cause you to pay tax on something that you were never intended to pay tax on, your Social Security income? Maybe for most of you, half of your income that would have been tax-free, but now isn't tax-free. It is causing you to pay taxes on something that you probably didn't plan for or prepare for. This is wreaking havoc in people in their 70s right now who are forced to take money out because of what's called RMDs, required minimum distributions. They're forced to take that money out of their 401ks and IRAs and put it into their income, and then they're getting taxed on their Social Security, which they weren't planning on. This is wreaking havoc. It is killing people. And if you're not aware of it, look, a lot of people, if you don't know people that are past that 73 and being forced to do this, you may not realize this yet, but it's coming. Some of you are already taking money out of your 401ks or IRAs to live on. You probably already know about this too. If you're taking your Social Security at the same time, you're well aware of what's going on here. This is the dilemma. And we'll talk about this in depth here. I'll do a case study because this is such a big problem. Oh, by the way, one more caveat that counts as provisional income. Just to make absolutely sure you hit these numbers, 50% of your Social Security income, the check that you receive from Social Security, the one they're trying to determine whether you make enough money that they can tax you on it, they're counting half of it to tax you, to get you to the tax level. So let me break this down. If you're single and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, all of your regular income plus any of the money that you're taking out, any things that I just listed, plus half of your Social Security income, then 50% of your Social Security is taxed at the maximum tax rate that you maximum the full maximum tax rate that you're at. So not the lowest tax rate, the last dollar tax rate, the highest one that you're paying. For most of you, that's going to be 22 or 24%. If you make any money at all, it's 24. If you're a married couple, by the way, 34,000 means that 85% of your Social Security is fully taxed at the maximum tax rate that you pay. Married couple, 32,000 gets you to the 50%. $44,000 of provisional income means 85% of your Social Security income is fully taxable at the highest maximum tax rate you pay. This is a problem. Let me show you a quick, I want to abide by time here, but let me get through a couple and then I'm going to do a quick case study. So people ask this all the time, how can I increase my lifetime monthly income? How can I raise up the amount that I get? Look, do not discount how important filing your Social Security correctly is. Other than a private supplement, it's the only way to increase your monthly guaranteed income. It's it. That's the only options. All right, here's this case study. This is a client, very typical, 64 and 62, just over 34,000 combined annual Social Security income if they both file at age 62. By the way, if their income were higher here, it's worse. They're starting retirement with right about $752,000 in 401k and IRA assets. They want to retire early. They've got $750,000. It should be okay, right? We're going to give them a 6% annual return. We're going to say 3% inflation. Those are very reasonable numbers right now. And they need $70,000 per year of inflation adjusted after tax income. And we're going to say they live respectively to 86 and 89. Here's what this looks like. If they file at 62, like I just said, here's what's at stake. They're walking away from $186,496 of Social Security. And they need every single dime of that, I promise you. This is why this is so important to pay attention to when you file. All right, here's what this looks like. If they file at 62, this is the untouched cash flow. They file early. This is what their retirement looks like. The blue lines are Social Security. Those bars are Social Security. The orange bars, some of you see yellow. So people tell me sometimes it looks yellow. Sometimes it looks brown. They're orange to me. Those orange bars are their 401ks, their IRAs, all the money in their retirement accounts, $752,000. The black bar, the black line, that is the adjusted income, the $70,000 inflation adjusted income that they need to survive retirement. At the end of the orange bars, there's blank space, white. That's nothing. It's nothing because they're out of money. They're dead broke. This is a couple that started retirement at $752,000. They get a reasonable rate of return, 6%. Inflation's 3%. They run out of money in 2/3 of the way through retirement. They're still in their 70s and they're broke. The only income they have is Social Security. Do you think they wish they hadn't taken it early? That's the problem here. So look, some of you are thinking, oh, Dave just wants me not to take money early. He doesn't want me to retire at 62. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going to show you an alternative here, and it's still retiring at 62, but it's a different approach to this. It's paying attention to the problem of taxes in retirement. You see, well, let me show you. Here's the cash flow that's adjusted. It's optimized. The blue bars are still Social Security. The orange bars are still your 401k assets, your IRA assets. The red line is your income need. But look at the difference in the cash flow. Which cash flow would you rather have when you retire? If you're planning, would you plan on this or would you try to plan this way? So look, here's the only difference. There's no extra. We didn't give them a higher return. We're not doing anything like that. The only thing where they're still filing, they're still retiring at 62 and 64. They're not changing that at all. What are they changing? Well, let's take a look. Here, their Social Security isn't big enough for them to cover their expenses. So they got to take money out of their 401ks, a lot of money out of their 401k. And because of that, they pay a lot of taxes. In this one, they take all of their money from their 401k. They spend down the taxable money. Those orange bars represent money that you've never paid tax on. You're going to pay tax on that no matter what. Nobody can change that. But by taking it out first and not taking Social Security, you're only paying tax on one thing instead of doubling the tax. Then, by the time I'm taking Social Security, I'm taking far less money because it's a lot more out of my actual accounts, and I'm paying far less in taxes. This saves me. It doesn't just save me, it prevents me from going broke. Look, at the very beginning, I said there are two big worries. Do I have enough? And will it last long enough? Those are the two questions. We sit down. Look, this is my business. It's my livelihood, helping people make sure they have enough and making sure it doesn't run out. So it doesn't mean putting your money at higher risk to get a higher return in case I don't have enough. It's a strategy, but it's a risky one. This is a strategy that takes risk as much as possible off the table, reasonable rates of return. Doesn't mean, look, if they get 20% next year, is that going to help? Yes. But if you lose 20%, it's not going to help at all. I don't want anybody here to lose 20%, but the markets have years where they do really well. We've had several in a row here. It's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to happen. And you need to be prepared for it. One of the reasons our clients love us is because that's what we do. You got to have a plan of how to deal with this, and you can't expect the thing to be rosy all the time. What do I do? And how do I make sure that taxes aren't my worst enemy in the world? How do I not feed that beast with my life savings? How do I prevent myself from going into the hole of abyss of being broke and living on Social Security? This is critical, important. This is so important. So many people don't realize that this is going to happen to many of us who have done our job. We've saved like crazy so that we have money in those accounts, but we've never paid tax. Now, some of you have done something. You've transferred it to Roth. God bless you. It's smart, wonderful. So most of us haven't. And we've got to deal with this, and waiting till it's too late is not the answer. This is the federal tax difference. It's huge. By the way, look, it's over $186,000 in more Social Security, 14 more years of longevity in your portfolio, meaning you don't run out of money for 14 more years. For most of it, that's half of retirement. It could be a third of retirement for some of us. But it's one of those things that if you're going to be broke, the time to be broke is now when I can still work. It's not then. And for so many of us that haven't looked at this, that don't have a plan of how to do this, how to spend down those assets, we're headed for this. All right, look, your statement, your Social Security statement has no cost of living adjustment. The only time you're ever going to know about cost of living is in October when they tell you what the change is going to be in January 1st. But for the rest of us, For the rest of the time, we have no clue what it is. But to have any kind of hope of having a plan, you need to have some projection of what that's going to be. Social Security will not do that for you. It assumes that you work to one of three static ages: 62, 70, or your FRA, your full retirement age. Most of us aren't going to retire at one of those. And maybe the most egregious, I've said this 3 or 4 times, I've been married 48 years, but Social Security looks at my wife like she doesn't know me until she files a spousal benefit. I need something that looks at her record and my record and figures out where we're going to be in 10 years or 5 years or 20 years and has a plan for that. And maybe the most important thing is they cannot, their charter says they can't give you advice. Can they answer questions? Yes. But if you're asking the wrong question, what good is that? They cannot say you should be looking over here and doing this. That is something you cannot get from Social Security. AARP says whether you're close to retiring or you're just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. By the way, it's important to be aware that some errors have a statute of limitation on correcting them. Waiting is just not smart. Looking at that report is crucial to making sure that you're okay. All right. I'm right on time here. 2 minutes, I guess, or late, but we're pretty good. Look, at the end of these things, I always offer a personal Social Security analysis. I'm going to offer that to you this evening. Let me explain what it is. Then I'll explain why we do it. And then I'm going to explain to you, you guys are in for a treat. Who's going to do that for you? I think you're going to be really excited about this. Okay. Let me just tell you, it's going to include stuff like break-even concepts. I don't think they're that important, but they're definitely worth looking at. But we're going to cover that. It's super easy to understand. It will be easy to implement. It'll be, this is what you should do, and this is why you should do it. And then it'll look at things like alternatives. What if I don't want to do that, Dave? What would it look like if I want to do this? And then it'll look at shortfalls. What happens if I do this? What does this look like? It looks like I'm not going to have enough. How can I address that problem? What can I do? What are my options? It'll look at retirement income, cash flow, and a tax analysis. How can I save money on taxes in retirement? How can I plan 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now to make sure I'm paying the minimum amount I can to make sure that I'm maximizing how much I can spend in retirement and how much I have to live on? And then it'll look at your income plan. It'll assess whether you're not look, you have enough money, you're not planning on enough income here. You've got more than you are planning to spend. Well, how are you going to adjust that? And what if you have less than your income is over planned? It looks like you're planning and projecting money that's probably not going to happen. We need to look at this and how to fix that. And then it'll look at Roth. Should I be doing Roth conversions? How much should I be doing? And if I'm going to do a Roth conversion, what is it going to save me? Is it going to help? And how much? Because if I can't figure that out, should I even be doing them at all? This is something that's got to be a part of a retirement plan. And then coordinating your benefits. You cannot look at this in a circle. It's got to count and look at all the things that are necessary to have a comprehensive look. Your Social Security, your non-qualified assets, your qualified assets, your IRAs, your 401ks, your pension plans, your life insurance, your TSP, any asset that you think you're going to need or use in retirement has got to be looked at and coordinated with this to come up with the answer of what you should be doing. All right. If you haven't done this already, go to www.ssa.gov. And then I'm going to give you a link in a minute that you can go to and schedule your complimentary consultation and Social Security analysis. Now, I told you I was going to explain what we do, but let me tell you, when you go to that thing, you're going to get two options. Option one is exactly what I just told you. It's the complete filing strategy. It's the tax strategy overview. It's the retirement asset and Social Security coordination focused on tax and retirement assets. It's the whole Megillah. I haven't heard that in a while. It's everything that you need to get a complete analysis. That's option one. Option two, look, some of you are saying, Dave, I don't have all this stuff. I've got, I don't have 401k assets. I've got my Social Security in retirement. I just want to know when's the best time to file. Look, I wrote the workbook for you. It covers everything we just talked about, and it's complimentary. I'm very proud of the work I did on it. It will help you immensely. That's option two. If you don't have if you don't have money in 401ks, if you don't have IRA assets, then you don't need an analysis on taxes. You're not going to pay them. If you only have Social Security and retirement, you do not have a tax problem. You're not going to pay taxes at all. It's not an issue. So this works for you. Those are the two options. Okay. Look, this is intended to give you peace of mind, to make sure that you're not leaving money on the table or tipping Uncle Sam at the end of your life that is unnecessary and maybe in a worst case scenario, absolutely a huge mistake financially. So let me tell you why. Look, I told you at the beginning, I'm incredibly successful. We have a very, very successful retirement registered investment advisory firm, an RIA. And I'm grateful for life has been very good to me. We do this as a compliment, but I need you to understand we do this because look, I don't want to seem like I'm altruistic completely here, because we got a lot of people that go through this process and find that they really like us and want to do more. And we are grateful when that happens. We would be incredibly grateful if that happens. Look, I love Costco. I don't know if some of you, you're all over the country tonight. So maybe you don't have Costco, you have Sam's Club, or you have BJ's Wholesale, or some wholesale place where you go in. I love Costco. We have a couple that are close to us, and we go to them all the time. I force my wife, often force her to go on Saturdays, which she thinks is crazy. But the reason I go on Saturdays is I've gone on Tuesdays with her when I had a day off, and it's not the same. You go to Costco on a Tuesday, everything's the same, except they don't have those people at the end of every aisle cooking up something that I never heard of or never thought of and asking me to try it for free. And I love that because I like to try new stuff. And if I try something and I like it, I get some extra. My wife and I have a system. She doesn't look at even what I'm trying. She just stands by the cart and watches my face. And if I get a big smile on it, she tells them, okay, give me one. And if I go, no, I nudge her, she says, okay, we'll take two. Because if I try something and I like it, hey, I'd like to get some. We're pretty convinced that some of you are going to really like what we do. Here's why I know that. I'm going to tell you who's going to do this in a minute. But I know him in a very special way. And I know the work that we do. I know the quality of the work we do, how in-depth the planning is, how incredibly thoughtful it is, how deep it goes. And I know that when people see that kind of work from us, they're blown away by it. Many people tell me they've never seen that. They have advisors, but they've never seen anything like that. And that's why people love us. Look, I love this guy. There was a movie in the 70s, late 70s, called The Paper Chase. There was a TV show like that too. And the same actor was the law professor, the contract law professor. The actor's name was John Houseman. In the 80s, he did these commercials for a firm, and he used to have this line at the end of the commercial. He says, "We get business the old-fashioned way. We earn it." I don't know if you remember that commercial, but that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to show you what you're missing and the depth of the work that we do. Look, I told you I would tell you before who's going to do this. His name is Sam Addington. Sam works for me. I'm grateful to call him a friend. But look, Sam went into the military out of high school at 18. He charted off the charts, and he qualified to be a pilot. Sam learned to fly as a warrant officer, promotion after promotion, challenge after challenge. He learned to fly Apache helicopters overseas in Iraq, in Iran. He became so good at it that they brought him back stateside to train the next set and the next set of Apache helicopter pilots. He's the best of the best. Now, that's not enough. Don't misunderstand me. I'm in awe of him. My family is in awe of people that served in the military. I can trace back in my family people that served literally in the Revolutionary War. But it impresses me. But that's not enough to say, hey, you should really appreciate this guy. Here's what impressed me. While he was doing that, he earned his degree, and then he earned a master's degree in finance, all while he was fighting wars and training other people to be helicopter pilots. Here's the thing about a helicopter. It's way harder to fly than a fixed-wing plane. And the amount of dedication, the intelligence that he brought to that, the concentration he brings to what we do, to planning, to Social Security analysis, to tax analysis. He is the best of the best. I've never seen anybody better. I would pit him against my son, and my son's as good as it gets. Sam has offered to do these tonight. Not tonight, but if you sign up, that's who you're going to sign up with. I'm going to ask our team to post the link. It'll be in the chat. At the bottom of the chat, you'll see a link there. You just go to it. You'll go on and you fill that out. Or I'm also going to ask them to post a QR code. QR code is you just hold up your phone and take a picture, or not a picture. Don't just hold up the camera to this QR code that's right there on the screen, and you'll see a yellow square or rectangle in your screen. Press on that. It'll take you right to the sign up, and you'll be able to do that immediately. He has opened up his calendar for you. Look, you're going to enjoy spending time with him. He is the best of the best. I don't know anybody that I would trust to do this for you more than Sam. I think you're going to be incredibly blessed to see him. So take advantage of that. In the meantime, I promised you that we would do a Q&A at the end of this, and I'm going to jump into it right now. If you haven't already used the chat to actually type in a question, I'll give you some time to do that, but we're going to start with questions right now. Our tech team will put them up on the screen, and I'll just go through them one at a time until we get through these. So take advantage of that. I really appreciate your patience with me tonight. I have a little bit of a hoarse mouth, but a hoarse throat, but I'm working through it. All right, Kelly, how are you doing? Thank you for being here this evening. Here's your question: is this recorded and replayable for one like myself taking notes, yet not fast enough? Yeah, for the next day or so, you'll be able to replay this online. Now, we only leave it up for a day or so because we're constantly doing these, and it gets very confusing to people which one they go to if we leave it up forever. But it'll be here for a day or so. All right. Thanks for the question, Kelly. This is from Nuza. If you start taking / collecting Social Security benefits, and I go back to work, do I lose my Social Security benefits? No, but possibly if you're not full retirement age, meaning you haven't reached 66 or 67, depending on when you were born, it may make sense for you to stop those benefits. If you do that, you don't have to pay it back. You can, if you want to, up to a year. But you can stop the benefit, and guess what? It'll start growing again, just just like you hadn't taken it. And then when you stop working, you can take it again, or after full retirement age, you can take it again. So it doesn't reduce the benefit that you're getting. I hope that answered your question. Thanks for the question, by the way. Really good. Okay, question. I am divorced, married for 24 years, and stay at home mom. If I take early retirement at 62 and a full retirement, can I get my ex's Social Security? Also, I get half his Social Security. So, Elizabeth, here's the point. Yes and no. You get up to half of his Social Security. As long as you've been divorced for more than 2 years, you can apply that. You were married for at least 10, so you qualify. You can apply as long as you've been divorced for more than 2 years and get his the spousal benefit. Here's the exception though. If you're not full retirement age, you're not going to get half. You're going to get less than half based on how early you take it. If you take it at 62, you're going to get 70% of 50%, or about 35%, not 50%. But if you wait until your full retirement age, you'll get 50%. Hope that answered your question. Thanks for it. Great question. Okay, let me just look here. Well, so wondering about the divorce where never filed jointly, but only married for 7 years, still get their death benefit. At least I was older than him. Yeah, if you weren't married for at least 10 years and you divorced before he passed away, you are not entitled. You must have been married for 10 years. If you're currently married, you only have to be married for 1 year to get spousal benefits. But divorce spouse benefits require a 10-year marriage. So sorry. And that includes death benefit. Okay, next question. Okay. Oh, B. Thank you, B. Appreciate you too. Thanks for sticking with me. Even at full retirement age, I'm 69. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's the 10 years that matter, Nusa. Susan Barnett. Okay, question. I am divorced and have a higher Social Security benefit. Is there any thoughts on filing early and taking my ex's lower amount and then switching to mine at full retirement age and get a larger amount? Yeah, I can tell you it's not going to work. The thing I talked about, um, deemed filing, means when you go to file because you worked and have a benefit and you're entitled to that benefit as well, you only get one and you only get the larger of the two. So if your benefit is higher, that's the one you're going to get. The other benefit is no longer available to you. Great question. I make 140K and I'm 69. So I understand correctly. You are telling me I can work and collect and my benefits will not be decreased. That is correct. 100% correct. 69 is over full retirement age. Even it doesn't matter. That means you were born in 1954, I think. Yeah, 54. That's correct. So you're fine. You're over full retirement age. You can correctly take Social Security without any reduction in it and still collect. There's no reduction at all. And because you're over full retirement age, there's no reduction for early working either. So you're fine. You absolutely can take it without any reason not to. Okay, Elizabeth, how do you get the workbook? Go to either to the QR code and hold your phone up, click the yellow square or rectangle. It'll take you to the questionnaire to sign up. You just need to option 2 will get you to the workbook, or you can click on the chat. I'll ask our team to put it in there as well again. And Doris is asking the same question. Where is the link in the book? Link in the book. So the book link is option 2. That's it. Doris got both. Great. Okay. Yeah. Well, you don't need to do both. You get both if you do either one. You get the workbook whether you do the first one or the second one. Okay. B. So I am a widow. I can apply for spousal benefits at 62 and then switch to mine later. Yeah, that's correct. That is absolutely correct. Lori, should I save as much as I can in Roth for my TSP? I have 35 years of service at age 60. Yeah, so definitely Roth is great because of all of those things I mentioned that count in terms of provisional income. There are only a couple things that don't. Roth is one of them. So Roth does not count towards provisional income. So taking money out in Roth in retirement doesn't affect your Social Security, doesn't pay taxes under Social Security. Um, so saving that is great, and it will help you. Susan, can I contact you later to get the consultation? Yeah, I guess so. Look, I would recommend that if you're thinking about this, book an appointment. Book it for 3 or 4 weeks out if you have to. I don't recommend that. Most of the time it's better, and there's no obligation. You can go through this thing. We're not gonna force you. Nobody's gonna twist your arm. Sam is the kindest, nicest person in the world. He's never gonna pressure anybody to do anything. So, just go and get the information, get the analysis, and then if you want to, you wanna do something later, then just call us back. Um, there's a say, thank you. This has been very informative. Thank you. Appreciate your feedback. Really appreciate it. All right. I don't know if my tech team is telling me that's it. It looks like that might be. Okay. Well, look at that. All right. So we have withered down. We're only about 100 people on here now. So thank you so much. I'm going to tell you that look, it's the greatest privilege of my life to do these. I am so grateful to have studied this and be able to help people. I just want to thank you for participating. So I'm going to bid you good night. I'm going to say to you, may you have a wonderful evening. May you have great planning and a wonderful, wonderful retirement. I wish you all the best. We'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much.